All right, you guys. So I think we are live. Yep, here we go. Live on Facebook. We'll be on YouTube and Spotify in a little bit later today. And I'm with Dr. Tom Giammatteo, chiropractor, naturopath, physical therapist, acupuncturist, and co-developer of integrative manual therapy. And longtime friend and colleague. I've took my first class in February of 2000 and totally changed my life. So after 116 classes and still going, I get to talk with Tom every other week on our podcast about whatever we want to talk about. And today, I thought what came to me was the idea of it actually came up in my little boy's he's a third grader, his class. They were talking about the limbic system and the amygdala and the hippocampus and trauma and rage and all that sort of thing. So I thought the topic for today could be how the brain works in that deep level. You know, you had the idea of PTSD and past traumas, but then there's all sorts of reasons that somebody might be rageful or things aren't working and how it can affect health in a physical way. So, I took your subcortical class many years ago and I still use it. And I want to talk about all of that stuff and structure versus all this other ways of working on it. So Tom, thank you for being here. I'm all ears. I'm ready.
Okay, so it's come into this world a little bit more conscious in the last 4 or 5 years, right? We have other names for it, which is PTSD. We have polyvagal theory. It could be anxiety, it could be depression, but the limbic system has been our primitive brain for thousands and thousands of years, right? And you've journeyed with me as we've had better understandings of those type um, of that type of system and appreciating it. And we're fortunate, as our physical therapy background trained us in post-concussive or traumatic brain injury. The limbic system usually shows up pretty large, right, in those processes too.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't really appreciate, I think, as being neurodevelopmental physical therapists, as one of our branches of the background, we truly have a better understanding of seeing patients recover out of what everybody thinks is a coma, to the process of how it forms, how it behaves, into becoming a fully uh, aware being with consciousness in those pieces. So um, it's the basis of all skeletal animals. From the reptiles, they've discovered it in the reptile form, and it moves up through the Homo sapien, all the mammals, to us as being human beings. That the limbic system is definitely incorporated in different levels of seeing that.
Yeah, it's in every system, even the lower, supposed lower level animals without the bigger brains. And I was telling Jen, she was talking about it a little bit this morning, and I said, yeah, it's kind of like if you shoot a lion and you don't kill it, it's going to rage at you. It's not anger, and you can't tell it, come down. I didn't mean it. We only hit you in the shoulder. It's like you can't argue or work on it when somebody's in rage. So what do you do with how does this help? You're a chiropractor, physical therapist, naturopath. We help people with chronic conditions, the runners, the other people with chronic illnesses and conditions
Mhm.
and injuries. And I see this how something happened in somebody's personal life or something from the past can keep showing up, and it has a physical part of it too. Somebody's hip that doesn't get well, but it's a self-worth issue or some kind of other things.
Right. You used the word before called subcortical, right? Below the cortex, below the brain. It's the mini brain. It's the primitive brain. So we have uh, a subcortical, cortical, and a cerebral. So the cerebral is the thinking brain that everybody thinks about, with all those squiggles in it, and those gyri. And then we have the hypothalamus, the thalamus area, which is part of the cortical piece, and then the subcortical is this um, primitive limbic system, and it has many different parts to it, but it sees in pictures, like you said, it's survival, It's pain to pleasure. It's I gotta get out of here, and it's the motivation that a mother's going to fight for her child at the same time. And through our work with traumatic brain injuries and concussions and trauma, we can see that sometimes the subcortical or the limbic system can actually get stuck in a posture that makes everything look like a tiger coming at it.
And
Right.
it's like, is that the hippocampus, like where it kind of relates it back to something in the past and then it
Right.
can't.
The hippocampus, but they're actually full structure. They're structures of nerve cells that make up a different shape in the nerve in the brain. When I took my neuroanatomy, the guy basically said, well, you're going to cut through jello and just look at the different color layers or pudding, because the brain is really sophisticated and we have white matter and black matter, but you can't define like you could do in the rest of the anatomy. Oh, that's a bicep and it just does curls my arm up and the whole thing.
We don't know all the
So,
things that it does, in the
yeah.
brain.
So we can try to do an experiment, Ralph, with everybody. So if you don't mind getting sit up in your chair, sit with your feet flat on the ground and your hands lightly on your lap, and we can try to smile as big as we can 5 different times. And I'd like everybody to perceive the muscles around their lips, which is called the orbicularis oris. So if you take a big smile and hold it and let it go, big smile again. While you're doing that 5 times very slow, try to appreciate how your cheeks move, how your eyeballs move, how your neck intention moves, all those pieces while your hands are lightly on your lap. Okay. Now we're going to move to bringing our hands up and making a fist and maybe squeezing between 2 and 5 pounds of pressure in our fingers so they almost turn a little white inside, and then try to smile those 5 times. And notice what's happening to your cheeks, your lips, and everything else. What do you feel different in those, Ralph?
It's harder to smile. There's more
Right.
tension and it doesn't go into
Okay.
as big of a smile.
So make 2 more of those so everybody can see you on camera, right? And then put your hands down on your laps again, move your shoulders around, and try it again. 3 big smiles. Okay, the lips seem much longer and up curved with that whole piece.
Yeah,
So,
much lighter, easier.
right. So that posture of holding our hands is a fight position, and that actually cues the rest of the brain on how to fire. It actually, why would you be smiling if you want to hit somebody at the same time? So the muscles of the lips will actually get influenced by that posture there. So the limbic system is the guy that's controlling it, but if it sees your fists in action, it says, oh, that's a fight position, and this guy's trying to tell me to smile, that's a conflict that's hardwired in to the nature of us being part animal.
Yeah, the great and recently passed away Jack Daniels, the PhD in physiology, great runner, coach guy. He always, in his book, The Running Formula, he talks about at some point in a race, try to smile. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. So it changes your personality, actually changes muscle firing and everything else. But that's something that's programmed in there. So the limbic system is something that we have to deal with. And uh, our eyes, our our sound, everything else is based off of living in the jungle, but sometimes we replace names and words in there that get it higher processing. So we try to do some meditation to break it up, or how to reduce the stress or calmness. And when we apply integrated manual therapy, we look at the whole body and see where the person is extra sore. So it's almost like you mentioned at the beginning, the lion that has a thorn in its side where you stabbed it once doesn't really care because it's just hurting and it's going to attack everything. We have that, and we have a special tool which is called myofascial mapping. And when we do that tool before we take the person on as our client, we just take the little thorns out, and people feel better. They're more peaceful. They're more conscious at the same time.
Yeah, recently I did the below the diaphragm advanced strain counter strains that you taught us a couple of summer schools ago, and actually printed that out into a document so I could find it quickly because I did it a couple of times over the week, did it with Ben, and I work on Ben, my son, 3 or 4 times a week. We optimize function for his racing. And he got off the table and I was asking him, how's it going? Like, what do you notice? And he said, that was the best session ever. And when I noticed when I did that for myself is the stresses of the day were still stresses, but I was so much more light and okay. It's like I still wanted to solve things, but I got to see changing the structure really made things better. So for people to solve these things, like, one coach here, a high school coach, told me once, the thing is, you see kids running and racing and doing stuff, and somebody has a bad race or they're starting to have a bad season or stuff isn't going right. And he says, you don't even know what kind of stuff is going down in their house right now. They could be going through a lot of stuff. And so that stress, what's I guess, we have the myofascial mapping to find the primary root cause. Can you talk a little bit about like how to help somebody? People go to therapy, talk therapy. There's things like EMDR. There's the gut-brain connection and trying to get a better diet. And kids are really hurting these days a lot more than ever. And seeing a lot of therapists, all my therapist friends like that, the talk therapists are really busy with the kids. What do we do?
We eat too much sugar and we have too much gluten and oats in our diet. Those are two very addictive behaviors that irritate the system. So on our last 3 years of interviewing, my elimination diets is no wheat, gluten, or oats. Number 2 is no white processed sugar. Number 3 is no almonds, no peanuts. And we call those the neuroinflammatory 4 that put more tax on our nervous system. Another one in the sugar would be the Diet Cokes or the fake sugars also irritate the system. So one thing we could do is eat real food and real vegetables will calm us down. Another thing is getting daily exercise. And my wife and I wrote a couple different books. One of them was called the Body Wisdom book. And there's a tool in there called neurofascial processing. And we actually have a connection, which is the limbic system, or in chakras, or in meditation, it's called the third eye. And we have a tool to release that. So one hand there and on the heart brings up joy and helps the joy in that. Take it to the liver, it helps with frustration. Take it to the bladder, drains terror and panic. So the Body Wisdom book by Sharon J. Mateo is a great one. And then we have another one called Reflection Therapy by Jim Mateo and Jim Mateo, which are 35 simple pictures that deactivate the brain by visual acuities, the shapes, the sizes, all do different things. So
And that one takes all of like a minute or so per exercise, and it
Yep.
really helps. I do it a lot. Even after all these years, I still use it.
And then as you start to become one of our patients, we really work on cleaning up the GI system. Everybody talks about leaky gut. And the lower small intestine area, instead of the large intestine area, is where you absorb your food, but it has the shape of the brain. It's got those little curlicues in it. So shape defines function. So 45% of our neurotransmitters, the ones that run the chemistry in the brain, come from which we digest in the food itself. Right. So
I get the gut healed.
right. So eating the better foods, starting working on the leaky gut. And then what we do is help them stand up taller so their brain gets to breathe and everything else at the same time. And people feel a lot calmer. In the early 2000 to 2010, we had a couple people that had PhDs in the judicial system. And we took 2 or 3 people in the inner city and we helped them jump grades because we were taking out some of the fear and the pain. And then we actually went into a jail and helped take down violence by doing our cranial work and helping deactivate those pieces. So if you happen to find an IMT practitioner, all those tools are available to you at the same time.
Yeah, so IMTwellnesscenter.com for Tom and ralphhavens.com for me, East Coast and West Coast. I'll put the phone number there for Tom too, and my phone number, and reach out to us if this speaks to you, because there's a way to help people with some of the stuff that we're talking about, the stresses and anxieties and stuff. And doesn't it seem like it makes sense, like common sense, the idea that wow, you get them healthier and put good food in and take bad stuff out, and then with your hands do structural work to fix things up and get them feeling better. If you feel better, you can handle more stress. Tom's phone number is 860-561-2286. And I'm 360-599-2217. I'll put links everywhere. And so then what about talk therapy? Let's go to just briefly to that. Like, what's your thought on that for people dealing with the rage and the panic and the severe stresses?
I feel the combination of talk therapy and body work together are amazing, especially IMT as an integration. Body structure influence, just like we influence with our hands, that we can't smile. Some of those structures can make us feel that way all the time.
Like if your heart has a lot of constriction around it physically, you're not going to be able to feel as much.
Yes.
Of a smile.
So the other experiment, or we've probably all done this, is that you have to buy a gallon of milk and it's 10 of 9 and the store is closing, and you got somebody crying in the car, so you want to hurry up and you run to the back of the store to buy a gallon of milk. Now you're coming up to the cashiers and the cash register, and there's maybe 3 people there. You're going to look at who's, just by their body posture, who's going to be the most intelligent cashier that's going to get you out the fastest, right?
Yeah.
So we are always evaluating on a subconscious level who we want to interact with, who's going to be the best person, and that's by body posture. So in our psychotherapeutic classes, we can actually talk about what is a liver posture, what is a kidney posture. The liver is about anger and frustration, kidney is about fear and anxiety. So as you become a master of body posture, you can actually tell their emotions through their structure. So
and other people, can notice it too. They might just not have the words, but they'll be drawn to people that are happier, gentler, kinder.
So clients that have been in talk therapy come back and say, yeah, I was in that process for a long time, and after you got my liver fixed, I mean, I feel I'm this time faster. And we work with the psychotherapist and say, okay, what structure, what knee. So another really good book is by Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. And that talks about how body parts equal some emotion to that whole area. So the combination is beautiful.
Yeah.
The combination of a body worker of IMT and the psychotherapist will advance any person's level. And I try to facilitate, you got a therapist, let's talk together so that they can see the difference in when you got a stuck liver and when you don't have a stuck liver.
And probably the therapist would do better work clearing some of those restrictions out. We can all, I know Sharon used to talk about she'd rather have a therapist, an integrated manual therapist that had 10 hours of class and 100 hours of treatment instead of the reverse, because as you clear this out in you, it helps you see it in other people. That is cool, Tom. That's really good. It's so simple. And there are IMT practitioners around the world. So reach out to us. We've actually there's a Facebook page that I can go and just ask anybody got an IMT therapist here or there. And
on our website, IMT Wellness Center, there is a directory around the world of who you can see.
Well, this is great. This is great. Let me see if there's anything else I want to add. One of the techniques that I'm really loving, they're all amazing, and you do the right one at the right time, and it's just magic. Even though it looks like such a light touch thing that we're doing with the IMT, but that relax, relief, release technique.
Yep.
Goes right to the spinal thalamic tract and the thalamus. If there's anything you can say that might help people get this idea that, wow, you can do light touch therapy and take and help at the spinal cord and the deep subcortical layer area. You can make changes.
Many people hold emotions in their structure. So getting any type of structural release will help them process their stresses along the way.
Yeah, when I do that light touch therapy I just talked about, it gets very meditative very fast. And I remember when I did it to Ben once, just in Whole Foods, he touched the back of his upper neck and his top of his breastbone, and just for not even a minute did it. And then he walked around afterwards and he said, "Oh, I got my rockers back," which means like there's some running shoes with these rockers that just propel you forward. And he felt like he had all of a sudden put on rocker shoes. He could walk better. So that's a pretty cool system.
Yep.
Thank you, Tom. So imtwellnesscenter.com and then ralphhavens.com. Reach out to me and Tom, and I'll put this everywhere, YouTube and Spotify. And Tom, thank you so much for taking the time.
Anytime, Ralph. Thanks. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks. Okay, bye to everybody over there.